Hello and welcome back. It's puzzle time with Sudoku Sleuth, and today we're playing Professor Plum's library. Now, I must confess, I'm not entirely certain this particular video is going to make it out in time, because in essence, I'm recording it at the same night as Diwali, and unfortunately, it does mean that there is a lot of fireworks that are going to be probably playing throughout the background. Now, normally that wouldn't be an issue. It's just, unfortunately, our eldest dog just goes like into complete panic whenever there are fireworks. And we just had a really bad run over the last couple of weeks between, Halloween, then we had 5th of November. So followed by 5th of November, we basically had sort of straight into Diwali. So it's just been a bad run for her, and she's just absolutely frightened all the time right now. So I confess I've got music playing in the background. I may have to spend a bit more time as a result editing it to not get any copyright strikes. And equally, I'm going to be a little bit distracted because if she starts mourning, obviously I'm going to pause the recording, run to her, try and comfort her as much as I can before I come back and pick this up again. Wish me luck. So let's take a look at the puzzle. We have Professor Plum in the Library by Will Power. 2 willpower puzzles back to back, a Sunday and a Monday. And you can basically see almost like Professor Plum here, I guess the plum being the purple line, because I don't see anything else necessarily referencing the plum at all. And you can see like almost like bookshelves with a whole bunch of different books, the browns, I guess reds, blues, we're going to call these blues given this is purple, mauve maybe. And a fairly, I'm going to say complicated rule set, so I'm going to read through these carefully because I'm not entirely certain I've wrapped up my mind around it either. So, first rule, very obvious, normal Sudoku rules apply. So that means the digits 1 to 9 with no repeats in every row, in every column, and in every 3x3 box. So that's one rule set. The second rule, which for regular viewers of the channel is going to be very familiar, which is the RENBAN rule. So numbers on the 3 purple lines, so that's 1 purple line, that's 2 purple lines, and that's the 3 purple lines, clearly not this cell, these 2, are each a set of non-repeating consecutive numbers in any order. So this one, for example, is a 4-cell line. A valid fill would be, for example, 1, 2, 3, and 4. If I happen to remove the 1, this could also be, of course, a 1. I just showed you that, but it could also be a 5. Now, as long as they are essentially consecutive digits, and it could be in any order. So nothing says, if I clear this up, nothing says the 3 has to be consecutive next to the 2. Can be here, this could be the 4, this could be the 5, and that would be a totally appropriate pencil marking of this line. What else do we have? We've got consecutive pairs. Now, this is what's sort of unique to this puzzle. And like I said, I haven't quite wrapped up my mind around the negative constraint in particular. So let's read through this carefully. So 2-cell vertical lines of the 4 different colors. So essentially like this mustard color, this brownish red color, this red color, and this blue mauve color. So the 2-cell vertical lines of 4 different colors are library books. And they only appear on shelves between rows 1 and 2. As you can see here, that's connecting rows 1 and 2. Rows 3 and 4, that's another one. Rows 5 and 6, and then finally rows 7 or 8 respectively. Now, a book indicates the pair is consecutive. So this, for example, could be a totally valid fill because they are 2 consecutive digits, as would be 2 and 3. Now, the tricky part is it also says that no book in these shelves means that the vertical pair is not consecutive. So I couldn't put 2 and 3 in here because they are consecutive digits and there is no book in this part of the shelf. Now, if Professor Plum, and this is the part that I've really struggled with, and I'm going to try and interpret it correctly, is if Professor Plum is in front of a possible book 3 places, there is no negative constraint. So you can see that Professor Plum is sort of covering partially the bookshelf. So these two, we have no idea if they're consecutive or not. they're part of those 3 books that are unknown. I can also see another one down here. So that's 1, that's 2, that's 3. The challenge is when I look at it, I see a 4th, kind of where Professor Plum's body is. So it's not quite the 3 places that Will is referring to in the rule set. And there was nothing on Logic Masters Germany to help us kind of understand why this is the case. But you can see where there is, the bookshelves are sort of partially revealed, such as in here. Yes, there is a book and we can clearly see it, and therefore at least we know this bit is not consecutive, we know this bit is not consecutive, we know this bit is not consecutive. We just have nothing, I guess, to understand or guess about these sets of digits here. Anyhow, moving on from that, we've got horizontal consecutiveness is also not negatively constrained or considered in the puzzle. Now, last rule we have, last rule we have is black KROPKI dots. So numbers with a black dot between them are in a ratio of 2 to 1. So for example, if that was a 2, then we know that this would be either a 1, as in 1 to 2, or 4. 2 times 2 is 4. As long as it's in a 1 to 2 ratio, that is fine. Now it also says all the possible black dots between orthogonal neighbors, so vertical and horizontal, throughout the entire puzzle are shown. So once again, I couldn't do a 1, 2 in here, because that would have been consecutive, but I also couldn't do 2, 4. I cannot do a black KROPKI dot on something that is not shown on this puzzle. Lastly, we have a bit of the story here in the lore of this puzzle. Professor Plum says he's looking for a candlestick. No effect on the puzzle whatsoever. So, if you're not intimidated by this rich set of rules, I really had to decrease the font size to fit it all on the screen. Link will be in the description down below as usual for you to play along. And with that said, I'm going to say, wish me luck. And let me restart the clock and see how I get on. So, we've seen this before in a recent puzzle. And I can't even remember the puzzle name. Was it the entropy or one of the equality cages? Essentially, if it is... No, it was another willpower puzzle, actually, where it had grey dots. It was Bangers and Mash. And if you haven't played that, I'll make sure there's a link in the description, like here. Not description. There'll be a card here that you can click on so you can actually play it. But essentially, if you are both consecutive and in a 1 to 2 ratio, there's really only one way of doing that, and that is 1 and 2. So this is fixed. This is also fixed. This is fixed. There's quite a few digits that we can actually pencil mark almost immediately. Now, the rest of it, though, is actually here is another one. There you go. Is we can go, obviously, you know, this is almost like my standard opening move, is when you have 4 consecutive dots in a row like this, well, 3 consecutive dots between 4 different cells, you know that they are from the group 1, 2, 4, and 8. Because black KROPKI dots are either 1, 2, 4, and 8, or 3 and 6, and there's only 2 digits in this set, or they're from the digits 5, 7, and 9, and they can never appear on a black KROPKI pair, because a 5 times 2 is 10. You're not going to be able to pencil that mark. And you're not going to be able to do also 5 divided by 2 to get to 2.5. So whenever you have a run like this, we absolutely know that this is from 1, 2, 4, and 8. We also know that the order, because, you know, essentially the 1 8s are on the edges and the 2 4s are in the middle. The fact that we already pencil marked the 1 and the 2 tells us what the order is. That's 1, 2, 4, and 8. We also resolves this 2 and 1. Tells us that this is a 3 and 6. The fact that we also have, we know that all of these are consecutive. Just keep that fact in mind throughout this puzzle. This 3 is going to be joined with either a 2 or 4, but 2 is already placed in the row. So there's definitely a 4 in here. And either a 5 or a 7 to be consecutive with the 6. Sorry, I'm just going to pause a second and just really itch my nose. You know, I've just had a haircut and I think there's just a little bit of hair that's just irritating me. So excuse me for a moment if I just, actually rather than pause the recording and try and edit it later, Let me see if I can mute myself and just somehow hide the camera. Let me do that. There we go. That's much better. Excuse me. Right, let's try that again now. Right. This cannot be a 1. A 1 on a black KROPKI dot can only ever be joined with a 2. Look in here. I've already placed a 2 in the column, well, and the box. This cannot be a 2. Therefore, this cannot be a 1. So that's 2. That's 4. That's got to be the 1. This is no longer a 2. Yeah, this is the 1 because it had to be consecutive and in a 1-to-2 ratio. We're making decent progress. We have a 4 here. We know there are no 1s. There could still be a 2 in here. So I don't know if I want to look at this just yet or just come back to it later. I'll probably come back to it later. 4, this is 3 or 5, 7 or 9. Really, the only thing we know is that there is a 6 in here. And therefore a 6 in there. 3, 4, with 6, 5, or 7. So we know that the 8 and 9 are loose. Where am I going with this? I'm just trying to think what is the remaining pair that can fill this book. So it's not 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm fairly sure it's not 5, 6 because we already pencil marked the 6. It's not 6, 7. So this is 7, 8, or 9 with a definite 8. So 7, 8, or 9 with a definite 8 is the only digit that can connect 7, 8 or 9, 8. This 8 tells us the order. That's an 8, not an 8, with a 7, 9. And essentially we have the remainder of this. So the loose digit is the 5, 7, or 9, which is repeated in here. The 5, 7, or 9 could be adjacent to a 4, a 6, or an 8. The 4 could be adjacent to an 8. I don't think it can be adjacent to a 2. I think the negative constraint actually applies now. And the reason I'm saying that is if I go 4, 2, where's the book joining the 1 and 2 in here? In fact, where is the black KROPKI dots that are also joining these? So this cannot be, a 2, but it could be a 3. And therefore, can this still be an 8? Yeah, it can be 8 and then 4. That is totally possible. 4 and 8, 3 and 6. Actually, maybe I'm just missing something. All the black KROPKI dots are given as well as all the consecutive digits. So I don't think this can be a 4 because otherwise it would have been a black KROPKI dot joining them across. So pay attention to the rule Sleuth. They're the reason that we can do this. So if that's the 4, that has to be the 3, that has to be the 6. This 6 can now, I was just about to say cannot be joined with a 7, but the consecutive rule set doesn't apply horizontally, just vertically in these slots. This is still a 5 or 7. That's a shame. Okay. And yeah, no real constraints on any of the rest of it. We do know, however, that there is a 5 in here with a 7 or 9. And this is not the 9 because the only consecutive digit with a 9 would be an 8, which we already placed. So that's not the 9. If it's 7, it's 6. If it's 5, it's 6 or 4, but we've already placed the 4. So that's the 6. That's 5 or 7. I don't know what this is. I'll have to think about this for a second. So what digits am I missing? 1, 2... So 3, 5, 7, and 9. So this is one of the 3 5s. This is 7, 9. Sorry, music went a bit crazy for a second. Fingers crossed. Right, back to where I was going, 3, 5, 7, and 9. The fact that they're all odd digits means they're not going to be consecutive with what I pencil mark, so they're all valid in here. So I'm not really sure I can crack this, if I'm honest, at least with the information I've got available at the moment. So, moving on. What do we know in here? So we've got so 3 and 8. I think I know this. So let's think about 8s for a second. No 8s in here, no 8s in there, we've pencil marked it. I'm pretty sure this cannot be an 8 because it implies there are 2 digits that can actually have all of these to be consecutive, and as well as the fact that there would have to be a black KROPKI dot here. So that's not the 8. I say, 2 digits. We need 5, 6, and 7 all to appear on 2 cells, so that's not going to happen. That 8 puts a 7 or 9 to be consecutive on here. One of these is a 3. Kind of thinking I may have to think about this RENBAN line sooner rather than later. Yeah, I'll move on. Let me see if there is anything else obvious I can do. So 1, 2, and 8. I need a pair down here. This run here is all 3 6s. Doesn't get any easier than that. 1, 2. I could do 1, 2, but I can't do 4. It's in the column. So this is 1, 2, 1, 2 again. And again, I cannot get away from the 4. So I'm essentially restricted to 1 and 2 again. And because it's between row 8 and 9, I don't have to have a book, but I do have it in here. And I have the black KROPKI dots. I'm going to do a bit of coloring for my sanity, just to remind myself that these are the same. We've done 1, 2, 3, 4. This is clearly no longer a 4, therefore this is not an 8. This is still 5, 7, and 9. And we still have another consecutive set. If I think for a second about odd digits and even digits, because anytime you have a consecutive set, you've got an even and an odd. I've got one even digit between these two, second even digit here, third even digit here, fourth, in here, meaning this has to be odd. And it's not 1, and it's not 3, this is 5, 7, or 9. Yeah, not enough still. What else do I have? 6. Clearly this is not 3, 6. This is not a 1. This is 2, 4, or 8. 2, 4, or 8. And there's clearly a 4 joining them. Finally resolving this as a 3 and a 6. And therefore this is not a 9. I've got a 5, 7 pair in here that finally gives me this 9. That's not the 9. This is a 5, 7 pair. And therefore a 3, 9 pair. Same challenge. There's no way I'm putting a 9 on this RENBAN line. I would need 5, 6, 7, and 8 all in these 2 cells. That's the 3, that's the 9. Now I could still do a 2. I mean, there's enough of this RENBAN that I feel like I may as well just pencil mark it now. Because essentially, I have no 1s. The lowest digit I can do would be a 2, and because of this 2, it can only be in here. So I could do 2, 3, 4, and a 5. That's a valid fill. The other possibility would be 3, 4, 5, and 6, except no 6 is allowed. That's a 2, that's a 5. And I guess there's kind of a book in here, but it's in the way because Professor Plum just decided to walk in front of the bookshelves. Looking for, what was it again? A candlestick. So we have 6s and 9s and a 5 or 7. So we know that the 9 will be joined with an 8 beneath it because they are all consecutive. Therefore, this is not the 9. One of these is an 8. The 6 will be joined with a 7 because the 5 is not available. And if there's a 7 in here, that means that's the 9. Shame, because I would have loved to resolve these, but apparently no. Let's keep going. So we now know this is, I say we now know, this is 7, 8, 4, 7, 8. Actually, I can resolve all of the top row now, can't I? That's the 7, therefore, because there is no 9. That's the 5. That's the 3. I must know what this is. In fact, I know what this is as well. That's the 7. Let's just fill this in. This is 6, 9, and 5. And we already said this is not the 9. 5 or 6. This is not the 8. This is not the 7. This is the 4. This is the 5. These are not 5s. These are not 4s. Do I know anything about these? 9, 8, 6, 7. Doesn't seem it. No black KROPKI dots. 4 can't be next to the 8. 7 and 8. 6 and 9. I think the volume of rules just means you really have to be just on top of it constantly. Right. Consecutive set. I've got 1, 2, a loose 3, a loose 5. No, 5, 6. They're in here. And this is the 3, 9. Just because the 5, 6 are the only pair that are consecutive. So they go in here. The 3 can still be here because, again, books don't really go across shelves. That'll be something to see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, that's the 5 because the 8 and 9 are in here. Clearly, the 5 can never be on a black KROPKI dot. We discussed this earlier. So that's the 6, that's the 5, that's the 3. 1 and 2, well, specifically the 2 is not available. So that's the 4, that's the 7. The 3 helps me unwind all of these. The 1, 2s remain a mystery for now. Do they remain a mystery? No, they don't. Again, black KROPKI dots. 4, 8, not available. That's the 9, that's the 8. This time I can say it is a mystery for the rest. Right, what do we have in here? We know that this is not a 7. We have 5 and 9 with an 8. They need to be consecutive. That's an 8, 9. That's the 5. That's not an 8 anymore because we just pencil marked it. That's a 2, 4. And we have what is left, which is a 5 and a 7. And thankfully not consecutive because we have no book there. We need a 4 in here to complete the column. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 7, 8, and 9. Means that the 8 has to be on the book for it to be consecutive. It can only be in here because of this 8. And this is 7 or 9. Unfortunately, nothing helps disambiguate this. Oh, no, it does. 7. That's a 9. That's a 7. Amazing bit is that you can solve so much of this puzzle without really having to think about Professor Plum at all. Not that I'm saying teachers are useless or anything like that. That's not what I meant. Don't put words in my mouth. Right, remaining sets. We have 1, 2, a 4, and a 9. 9 is easy. That's the 9. Then we have a 1, 2, and a 4. Not so easy. And this is not a 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can still have a 1 in here. What about there? We've got 1, 2, and 8. And obviously this 8 doesn't help us disambiguate the RENBAN. Of course not. Too much to ask for that. Got a triplet though. 1, 2, and 4, meaning we know what these two are. This is 5 and 7. and I was just sort of went quiet for a bit because I was looking at this 5-7 pair and thinking, this is quite dangerous. I'm not sure how I can resolve this. And then I'm thinking the RENBAN will help me. Essentially, I'm feeling very confident that there is a 1 on here to force the fact that this is a 5 and not a 7. And how am I going to prove this? I need to think about what this digit is for a moment, but shall we just keep going for a while and see how we get on? We have a 7 and 8 in here. That 7 tells us the order. That's a 7 and 8. We have a 5-7 pair. Therefore, there's another 1-4 with a 6. 6 tells us this is a 6. This is the 1-4. 1-4 pair. That's the 2. 1 is on here. Not a 7. 5-7. Told you. That's how we're going to kind of resolve this setup. That's 1-4. I don't know what this is yet, but I imagine it is not 1 or 2 because I'm all the way up to 7 on a very short RENBAN line. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So is that, can I actually do 2? 2, I guess if it's, no, because I need a 4 and a 3. So that has to be the 4, and this has to be the 3, I venture to say. Well, I mean, I'm fairly sure that is the case. I'm just going to write it in. 9, 8, 8, 9, 3, 4. And if I've not made any mistakes, oh, well, actually, hang on. I still need to resolve these. That 2 tells me what they are. 1, 1. Not made any mistakes. That's a solution to today's puzzle. Lovely puzzle, willpower. So I just want to come back to this comment about the fact that 3 places where Professor Plum is in front of the possible books and therefore there is no negative constraint. And I'm still pretty certain that's 1 spot. Here, let me lose all the colors for a second. That's purple was a bad idea. Blue, green, yellow, red. So I am going to say there are definitely 4 places, and that was an error. But regardless, what a phenomenal puzzle. I mean, it's a lot of rules that you just need to sort of almost like carry with you to stand a chance of basically being able to solve it. The number of times the 4 resolve these 8, though, so often, you really just have to sort of be on the lookout for them. But aside from that, what a beautiful puzzle. Thank you, Professor Plum, and for taking us through your library. Hope you find your candlestick, and I hope that you guys enjoyed today's puzzle and today's video. And I'll see you back at the next one. Bye for now.